Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
You said I'm added to a no-fly list?
Yes, you've been added to Flair's no-fly list.
How is that? I've never flown on Flair before.
I am not sure. The system is showing up that you've been added to our no-fly list.
How can I be added to a no-fly list? That's illegal.
This is Canada 2021. Communist-style dictatorship where people without charges go on a no-fly list and get escorted out of the airport by how many? Look at him. He's already with his little byline fraction. What are you going to do? You're not going to do anything. So don't act all tough. You guys are pathetic. You're pathetic. You're pathetic. You're pathetic. And you're all absolutely ridiculous and disgusting. Have a nice day.
Well, Chris, you must have been astounded. Like you said, the reason you get on a no-fly list is that you're a recognized terrorist, which, at last check, I don't think you qualify for that descriptor.
Well, according to them, notifying Canadians that they have rights and notifying Canadians that they have the ability to say no to things like forced testing, to things like forced government quarantine, and to things like an untested, unproven, unsafe vaccine, that's the real threat.
Well, folks, as you well know, during the last year and a bit, we've seen all kinds of charter rights trampled on by various politicians, bureaucrats, and chief medical health officers, ostensibly to eradicate the Wuhan virus. And when you wonder if we've seen the worst of the worst, then we hear of yet another story of an individual's rights being completely eradicated for no good reason. And without further ado, I would like to introduce my guest, the notorious Chris Guy, aka the common nuisance in the eyes of the police. How you doing, Chris?
Well, I'm not a common nuisance anymore. I've graduated.
Oh.
Officially, as of this morning, I'm now a terrorist.
Well, let's be clear, they haven't actually called you a terrorist, but you've, I guess, been put into the same bowl of cherries as terrorists, which is to say you are now on Canada's no-fly list?
That's correct. And I say terrorist because if you go to the actual government website for Canada's no-fly list, the only reason to be put on the no-fly list is if you are declared a terrorist or if they can reasonably believe that you're going to do terrorist activities. What activities was I going to do? I was supposed to go to Calgary and Edmonton, Alberta, domestic travel to go to the rallies, to speak about the lockdowns, to speak about the coming vaccine passports that they're going to try to slip down society's throat. And that's why they declared me a terrorist, because I'm informing Canadians that they have rights. I'm informing Canadians that they have the ability to say no to these draconian measures. And the last thing they want is Canadians to be able to fight back against the tyranny that they're implementing on us right now.
But Chris, let's unpack this. You tried to fly out to Alberta, as you said. You tried to book a ticket. Was it with Air Canada, I presume?
No. First, I tried to book with Swoop Airlines. That was a couple days ago.
Okay.
And when I went to the airport, as soon as I walked in, it was obviously a setup. I stick out because I don't wear a mask, obviously,
yes.
So it's easy to recognize me. But as soon as I walked in, I was walking over to the ticket counter. As I'm handing the passport to the ticketing agent, a so-called supervisor walks over and she says, "Excuse me, sir, can I talk to you for a second?"
Okay.
I said, "Sure." She said, "I'd just like to inform you that your reservation has been canceled." And I said, "Why?" She's like, "Well, you got an email from us letting you know that it has been canceled." And
was that the case?
At that point, I thought it was, so
okay.
I didn't argue with her. I was just like, that's really strange.
Okay.
So I left. And then when I got to my car, I checked my email.
Yeah.
And sure enough, there was no email correspondence. I checked the spam folder. There was nothing that said that my reservation had been canceled. It was just my ticket. So I went back.
Yeah.
And I started filming. And I said, "Excuse me, I'd like you to show me this so-called email that said I was canceled."
Yeah.
And how did you know who I was right when I walked in? Like, you recognized me from my face. I didn't even give my ID.
But Chris, if we fast forward this, surely at one point you say, "Why has my reservation?"
Oh, I
been
said that a
canceled?
million times. They
Okay.
They wouldn't tell. Oh,
so they wouldn't even tell you you were on a no-fly list.
In the Swoop case, they didn't tell me I was on a no-fly list. In the Swoop case, they said that Swoop was owned by WestJet.
Okay.
And I did not know this. And I am banned on WestJet. Why am I banned on WestJet? Because for the same reason. In October, I was flying on a WestJet flight to Moncton, New Brunswick, scheduled to speak at a protest, and the following day I was scheduled to speak at a rally in Halifax, Nova Scotia. So what happened? They said that my medical note, which has been validated by at least 4 different airlines, WestJet tried to say that it was invalid because I was flying in September and the note was written by my doctor in August. So they tried to tell me, because the note was written last month, that my medical condition that I've had since I was a baby somehow no longer applied. And that was their excuse.
So in their internal policy at WestJet was to...
Their internal policy is that they have to honor medical notes, and they have no problem doing it. In fact, when I flew on Air Transat and I flew without my mask, it went in the Toronto Star, and Air Transat was praised by some for honoring my exemption and questioned by some for why would you honor the exemption.
Right.
A WestJet spokesperson actually weighed in on that ad, and it's still a Toronto Star article. I can bring it up. And he admitted the WestJet policy is to honor medical exemption notes. Meanwhile, they didn't honor mine when Air Transat did, and it was the exact same medical note.
Well, that's fascinating. So they're saying something publicly, but they're not practicing what they preach.
And there's a reason for that, because it had nothing to do with the mask. It was about stopping me from speaking in New Brunswick and Halifax.
Did someone tell you that, Chris?
I know for a fact, because as soon as I landed, they didn't even let the plane get to the jetway. They actually had the RCMP come and kidnap me off the plane. I say kidnap because they gave me some ridiculous bogus charge of causing a disturbance for not wearing my mask and showing a medical note, which is not a and it's not an arrestable offense anyway. And then they immediately released me within 60 minutes, apologized, and put me back on a plane and sent me back to Toronto.
Wow.
So basically, it was a kidnapping that they justified with a bogus charge that they immediately dropped and apologized for.
Incredible. So WestJet is now into cancel culture by actually detaining someone from going to an event to speak. But the issue at hand, Chris, I'm more...
The real issue at hand is that it's government colluding with these so-called private enterprises. These airlines all take government money, so they take all government orders. So I booked today with Flair Airlines, completely independent, not owned by anyone. I've never flown with them. I just got back with Turkish Airlines. They have no problem with me. So it's not like I'm some kind of blacklisted traveler or anything. And as soon as I walked into the airport, right away, the girl at the counter, as soon as I gave her my passport with my real last name on it, she said Sky to me, and I was like, what? And then she opened the passport. So they obviously had something written in the computer already. And then she told me there's a problem with my reservation. So a manager came over. I showed him my confirmation email and everything with the confirmation number. He put it in the computer, and then he's the one that told me you're on a no-fly list.
And that was the Flair Airways
That was earlier this morning.
Well, Chris, you must have been astounded. Like you said, the reason you get on a no-fly list is that you're a recognized terrorist, which, at last check, I don't think you qualify for that descriptor.
Well, according to them, notifying Canadians that they have rights and notifying Canadians that they have the ability to say no to things like forced testing, to things like forced government quarantine, and to things like an untested, unproven, unsafe vaccine, that's the real threat.
You said I'm added to a no-fly list?
Yes, you've been added to Flair's no-fly list.
How is that? I've never flown on Flair before.
I'm not sure. The system is showing up that you've been added to our no-fly list.
How can I be added to a no-fly list? That's illegal. What was your name?
I am not allowed or not entitled for the government of Canada to give you my personal information.
That's okay. I can find out just by when I talk to your company. And you won't give me your name either, I suppose, right? Once again, Canada, the no-fly list for what? Because I'm knowing your rights. And now guess who's coming to bother me? Look who it is. What's the problem here? Is there a problem? Why is everybody following me? Why are you guys following me? Is there a problem? You guys have a problem? Why is he walking around with a bylaw ticket? This is Canada 2021. Communist-style dictatorship where people without charges go on a no-fly list and get escorted out of the airport by how many? Look at him. He's already with his little bylaw infraction. What are you going to do? You're not going to do anything. So don't act all tough. You guys are pathetic. You're pathetic. You're pathetic. You're pathetic. And you're all absolutely ridiculous and disgusting. Have a nice day.
They do not want me getting these inconvenient truths out to Canadians. They want Canadians to feel helpless. They want Canadians to feel powerless. They want Canadians to comply with this agenda. The agenda is the vaccine passport. I've been saying it for months. People have been calling it a conspiracy theory. April 2nd, it became law in New York City. Florida's Governor DeSantis had to draft an executive order to block the vaccine passport from becoming law in Florida. So is it still a conspiracy theory, or are people just idiots? And once the vaccine passport comes into play, ladies and gentlemen, they'll wait until they can forcibly vaccinate enough of the population to make it mandatory. Then everyone is going to be like me on a no-fly list unless you go take the vaccine. And then guess what? After a few months, they're going to tell you how much safer it made air travel. So now they're going to expand the vaccine passport to employment. Then they're going to expand it to your personal life, like the gym or going to a concert. So now you're not going to be able to live life unless you take their experimental, dangerous vaccine multiple times per year. And your vaccine passport immunity expires. So this is going to be a yearly thing, and every year they can even add more vaccines if they want, more medical treatments, because now you've given up your last fundamental freedom, which is your bodily autonomy. And now not only do they own you financially and own you spiritually, they literally own you physically.
And Chris, I think you're right. I think this is going to be sort of a soft penalty if you don't take the vaccine. And by that, I mean, you're not going to be thrown in jail or put into one of these quarantine hotels, but they're going to say, hey, you're free not to take the vaccine. But like you said, you want to go to the Fleetwood Mac concert, you want to go to a Leaf game. Well, you got to show that to get a ticket. But more to the point, we haven't reached that level yet.
Yes, we have.
Well, you know, unofficially, with you on the no-fly list. And, you know, folks, what I find particularly egregious about this, as we uncovered a couple of years ago, you would think that, let's see, oh yes, Omar Khadr, that individual might be on a no-fly list. He's a convicted and self-confessed murderer and terrorist. He took the life of a U.S. serviceman and partially blinded another. And as Ezra Levant, the big boss man here, found out a couple of years ago, it looks like Omar Khadr is free to fly the friendly skies. Here, check out this clip.
Can I have a word? Can I talk to you for a minute?
Can we take a selfie together?
If you want.
Yeah?
Can I ask you a couple questions? How did you get on the plane? I thought you were on the no-fly list.
So this is exactly what we figured would happen. Why don't we go ahead and walk away from
why don't you,
things that are hurtful?
Why don't you? But aren't you on the no-fly list?
Is there security?
For me or for him?
Yeah, for filming a person when that's really not an okay thing to do. So please. Yeah.
Can I ask you why you won't let the widow have access to some of the money you got?
Excuse me, officer, he's harassing us.
He's not harassing anybody. That's a convicted Al-Qaeda terrorist right there who just flew on an airplane.
Yeah, so that's...
How ridiculous is that? So a man who literally went to another country to be trained to attack our country and then actually killed people, the definition of terrorism, killing people for political purposes, is okay to fly and was actually paid millions of dollars by Justin Trudeau, our government. Meanwhile, a Canadian citizen with no criminal record and no charges of any kind is put on the no-fly list because he tells Canadians to know their rights, protect their rights, or they will take your rights. And guess what? What did they do to me? They just took my rights.
And the reason, of course, Chris, is not because you killed and partially blinded somebody, but you are a criminal when it comes to wrongthink. You are a criminal when it comes to political incorrectness. And again, it's another example of our freedom of speech being eroded and cancel culture being embraced. This is an outrage. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to lawyer up?
Well, I'm going to use whatever resources I have available, obviously, to get this rescinded. I want it to be in the public eye. I want everybody to know exactly what the government's doing. If they can do this to me, they can do this to you, they can do this to everybody. What did they do last week? They sent 40 police to my house illegally, tried to kidnap me on my property without a warrant to be on my property and without a warrant to arrest me. And when that didn't work, then they just put me on a no-fly list and called me a terrorist. It's absolutely disgusting. It shows that our country is slipping towards a communist-style Chinese dictatorship, with Justin Trudeau is on the record, on video, claiming how much he admires it.
There's a level of admiration I actually have for China, because their basic dictatorship is allowing them to actually turn their economy around on a dime and say we need to go green as fast.
Okay? So that's where we're headed. If people are still in denial, why did they just put us into a third lockdown?
Well, Chris, back to the issue at hand. Like I said, it is absolutely outrageous that you are on this no-fly list. I reached out earlier to Public Safety Canada. That's who's responsible for administering the no-fly list. I see this going one of two ways. They're going to simply not comment, or they're going to issue a email, a press release, in which they say, due to privacy concerns, see, they're concerned about your privacy and Omar Khadr's privacy, we cannot comment on this issue.
I actually believe they're concerned with his privacy.
Yeah. Well, Chris, listen, like I said earlier, I hope you lawyer up on this. I don't think there's any legal grounds for this to be based upon. And there you have it, folks. Welcome to Justin Trudeau's Canada in 2021. A convicted terrorist and murderer, Omar Khadr, who killed one serviceman from the U.S. and blinded another, he's free to fly the friendly skies. He gets an apology. He gets a $10.5 million check because of his hurt feelings. And this Canadian citizen, for having politically incorrect thoughts, for speaking out about the COVID madness we are enduring every day, no, he is grounded. Unbelievable, unacceptable.
Wait, how is standing up for rights politically incorrect?
Well,
aren't we supposed to be a free country? Isn't that what Canada, the United States have been valued for? Isn't that what our government tells everybody, why we should love our country so much? Because we have this freedom. So then how is standing up for personal freedom, how is informing Canadians that they have rights, and that's why our country is so special and so great, how is that politically incorrect? How is that incorrect at all?
Well, Chris, I'll answer your question and close this segment at the same time. It's because, as you referenced earlier, our Prime Minister some 6 years ago said China has the basic kind of dictatorship that he so admires. I think that tells you everything. How free are people in China?
About as free as I am.
Yes. Folks, it's an outrage, and we're going to continue to follow this story in case there are any developments. And let's hope the right thing is done, and this individual is moved off a no-fly list simply for having a wrong opinion, according to the Justin Trudeau Liberals. Despicable. Folks, have you been given one of those $880 Wuhan virus protocol tickets? Well, if so, please reach out to us at fightthefines.com. That's fightthefines.com. Tell us your story, and if we think it has merit, we will get you in touch with a top-notch criminal lawyer and crowdfund your legal fees.